Okay, roll call, I can see who's here today. I better write it down because I forgot last time. There's minutes from the last meeting, which hasn't been since October because of the holidays. That was relatively short, so I don't think there's anything. I did put some costs down here for the brochure, just, and maybe we could start with that since we've been gone over that a few times. I redid it with your diagrams, or tried to do your diagrams. Here's the colored version. And the cost, there's like 140 homeowners on the creek, so if we were just going to, pass along to the people who border the creek, 150, 200 copies would be sufficient, which is like $100 color. So I don't think that's too much to ask the city to provide. But this is for your approval first, then we have to get Joe Wade's approval. So if you want to take it home and take a look at it, or the pictures are mine, so there's no references needed. I know what the little boy is doing, but that's because I was. Can you tell what he's doing? Is it? I just thought to me later
I got
that
the color version.
yeah.
What's the little boy doing?
He's probably throwing rocks into the creek, right?
No, he's actually got a trash picker upper. And
Oh,
see the
yeah.
garbage bag?
Oh, right.
But I didn't, as I looked at it, I wondered if you didn't know what was happening.
Oh, he's got his garbage here.
Is that evident?
That's him? This little white thing? That looks like a pipe coming out.
Wait, no, we got trash picker uppers.
On the other
But I
side
didn't
would-
quite get a good angle of that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's okay, I think that's, no, it's nice to show the youth,
Probably
part of
something.
this,
I don't see his trash picker.
You can't see his face, so there's no issues on.
Well, this is a pipe coming out.
Oh, here, have a copy.
I think it's this black,
It's the trash bag.
yeah. trash
This was
bag.
a handout to go door,
Okay,
door to
whatever.
door to the homeowner,
Because
meet and greet.
when you start to look at,
Boy, there's someplace where the creek looks this nice.
yeah, heart rate.
A little bit of background, a little bit of what you can do.
I still can't figure out
Heart
which,
rate's a good
in
point
Alden,
that,
which house are
likes the
you?
fact that
I
you
go by
So
there
I'm
all
right
the
on
time.
campus.
I know, but which house are you at?
Yeah, I
Facing
pulled that off of your older one, the water and you one.
On the
And I
east
did go back and read them.
And then the
Make sure
creek,
they're
and
still
then one more
there.
house, right?
side. Yeah, across the,
And that
That's the
puts
creek, and then
the
there's that
notice
thing
on
that
the
used to be a little
residents
insurance company or an antique place or something.
oh, yeah, that's,
to,
So that's two from you.
not put their leaves in the waterway, for example.
Okay.
it's close to,
So we do have little room, if you wanted
Every
to
time I
add
go down
anything
to
else.
my vet,
to do.
I go, which house is Jan's? I can't.
Although I
Actually, I like.
wanted to try not to have it too dense.
It's good. Really. He's got two practices, so it's not.
So the top picture is what is probably not acceptable for the overhanging branches, and the second one is what it should look like.
Yeah, right. I don't know if that was clear, whether the bold problems and solutions or not, but in my picture, it's hard to find a picture in drawing. It's hard to draw on in Word. So I don't know if that's clear or not.
Where else would people put stormwater?
On your grass, you just let
No,
it.
but it says keep it on your property. How would you get it off?
Well, they route it into the swales, which is not technically your property, but everybody's routing their sump
We don't have
pumps and their
swales.
downspouts and everything into the
well,
swales.
I think originally when I know in my subdivision, the original sump pump exit was into the swale.
Right, and they made
Oh.
you, they made you disconnect them about 20 years ago. Right.
Because they had tile that ran right to the swale. And the swale right by my driveway was always wet with water.
And there's an awful lot of people still pipe it down there, and some think that they should. Ideally, should keep your yard wet for a day or two and help recharge your well and,
Right.
Other than that, I think the brochure covers pretty much
I think it does too.
everything that we need to say.
okay. And we'll-
Is it MWRD that's doing the rain barrel program?
I-
Are they,
Are they still, I don't know.
Yes.
Yes, they
Are they still?
so I mean, I think it was worthwhile that.
Anybody want one? I got one to give.
Actually, I have two.
You have 3 of them.
Because I had already bought 2 of them.
I already gave one away.
But,
Well,
anyway,
that's a good-
So that
we
might
could
get,
add
you know,
that.
just to, you know,
Yeah.
say that, you know, MWRD.
Well,
or,
it
you know,
connects
go
to your
MWRD's
downspouts,
website
but my
for more info
downspouts
or
are too
something,
big,
and that
so you
way,
have to go
for
buy an
those,
adjustment size,
Are interested in it.
because I have the large ones.
Do we want to put that in the brochure, or do you want to just make sure it gets on our website?
We got room to add it
I don't
if
see
you
how
want.
it would've made
I mean,
for
there's
the
room to
small
add like one more bullet point on
I have
each
the rubber one.
Yeah, I
thing
think
if
two
you
more
think.
bullet points.
Okay.
Okay.
Away from my property,
And when the program
I
runs
bought
out.
it in Menards or something.
Yeah, I have those
Okay, I
connected,
gotta
go
check,
underground.
make sure
Oh,
that's
see, I
still
only have one of
active, right?
those.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. All right, if you think of, if you, you know, think of anything else, or if you're looking at, you know, just
You want to look at the
email
other
me
one?
and I'll submit this to Joe Wade for approval then.
Okay,
It's pretty tough to
Do we-
keep
do we need-
stormwater on your
do
property.
we need a motion to,
John, we need a motion to approve the minutes, which nobody had a chance to read, so.
I didn't even go get one.
I didn't either.
Just one editorial comment.
Sure.
On second page B, last comment,
Where am I at, where are we at?
on new business.
Okay,
McDonald Creek ownership depends on the individual deeds. It's really a plat survey.
right.
I did review my deed, and I think if others did too, you will find them just not dimensions of the property, but the pre-ownership of the property, who developed it. That's on my deed.
What do you mean?
There's no actual dimensions of the property on the deed. It
Oh,
only
right,
shows,
right,
it
right, it's a
only
description,
shows the
right.
development and when it happened.
Right.
But the plat surveys will show
Plat
exactly. And I think that they
Here-
probably could be attained from, let me see, Cook County?
Yep, you can go down to the old records and dig
Sure.
up the old microfilm.
But Hart, this thing you have says deeds. This thing you did says deeds. Doesn't say plat, see here?
I see that.
Yeah,
I
okay.
see that, but it is not,
It looks like it's an actual article
Right.
or code.
but then you see when he goes down to say this, and this may be in the new, when he gets to explain it, but when he goes down to say the waterway is on either side of the stream, that's when it becomes different. Or in his case, when the stream is on his property.
The deed is your title to your property. The plat's gonna be the thing that you visually see the representation of lot sizes and so on.
Right.
Right.
And where the dimensions actually are.
Right. The deed is descriptive
So I
and
think
the,
even on Hart's, Nancy, to your point, that probably should be plat.
Right.
Okay, all right.
okay, all
I
right.
wasn't sure if he pulled this from an actual code.
Otherwise, to be, so approve the minutes.
Yeah. I will change all those to plats and survey. I should know that, my dad's a land surveyor. It's been a while, though.
I'll second.
Thank you. All right. Well, as while we're talking about plats of survey, and Hart, you did a little background checking on that?
Basically what we've been talking about is looking at the easements, and most what we have on your plat of surveys will be the utility easements. Outside of that, the only actual easements for the city was under section, hang on, let me find that. Yeah, under Title 47B2-5, and that's called easement and rights of entry. And since McDonald, having that thing is not a public waterway, so you, basically, if it's on your property, that's a private, it's a private stream. In other words, you own it. Public can't walk. The only place the public actually, they say, is like if they're standing in the center of the stream, could walk. If they step on the bank, you can tell them they're trespassing on your property,
Unless there's an easement.
unless there's an easement. And that easement would have to be between the homeowner and the city.
No. Waterway Federal.
Okay,
But it's not just any member of the public that's has an easement to walk.
Well, I understand the easement on McDonald Creek south of me, when the natural resource people in the federal government come to read, they walk downstream, and they go all the way down through that property to get the debris out of there. If it's the raccoons, they come up in my property, which is the easement portion.
But I mean, we can't, we don't have any standing to go walking down the middle of the street, creek.
If we're a legislative
then they
committee,
move down the
we do.
individual lots.
I would be surprised if we didn't by our title.
Country club.
If you were representing the city, as a
Uh-huh. Which we
representative
were.
of the city.
Which we were. Now, that may be changed, though, so
Right.
commission now, Kathy.
Right,
But
so,
as far as this, the city under Public Works and the regulations we have, they will come on your property if there is an emergency. Outside of that, if they want to do maintenance, the current procedure is knock on the door, say, we'd like to come on your property or go to the creek to haul some debris or whatever out, and that's all they need. If they're gonna bring machinery in, then you have to have some kind of written agreement so that if they, whatever, if I dig up your lawn, who's gonna repair it and pay for the cost to bring it back to normal?
But WMRD doesn't.
Well, it depends, but you see, a lot of these rules from Illinois Department of Natural Resources to MWRD, and then to our city codes. So really, we're a function, our city codes, if you look at it, meet or exceed in some cases the regulations that are made by MWRD. So it's, we're still complying with all these regulations, but it's been handed down, and we as a city, through our ordinances, are complying with all the regulations that need to be done to satisfy the situation.
They did, I talked to, what's his name, Mark Roscoe, and got his list of their inspection checklist. They inspect all these sites regularly for debris, trash, erosion, whatever, so they have a pretty extensive list of them.
Okay, can we get copies of that?
Keep track of, yeah.
Looks
Sorry,
like they do an
didn't,
inspection after every half-inch of rainfall.
a half-inch rainfall event, yeah. So they do regularly,
Because I think if we get a copy of that, it might help us as members and in our own area to know where they're concerned about, and for us to either, get some homeowners to watch that area, because it's something that needs to be looked at.
I will get you a copy.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Right, yeah. I got, okay, yeah. And Mark was good, to showed us the old Creek Committee cleanup days, the flyers they'd send out, and they kind of staggered their cleanups based, with this section of creek this weekend, the next section another weekend, so that the Public Works didn't get overrun, but he said they were on board to do a pickup.
Okay, that just brought to my mind that I don't know if there's room, but as part of our campaign for cleanup, if we let the homeowners, I don't know how many people are aware that you can cut branches as long as you got them bundled and not over 4 feet long and not, tremendously heavy, you can put that out every week with your garbage, and they'll take it away. So in addition to our brochure, as far as letting people know, okay, when you cut this stuff, yes, you can dispose it. And I don't think a lot of people really realize that that is available through normal garbage pickup.
So perhaps that's something we can work into the brochure as well. We talked about something about the MWRD rain barrel program, and the second bullet point that under the current contract with the Public Services, landscape waste is included April 15th through December 15th, I believe is the date, that you can put out bundles of branches that you are trimming along the creek or anywhere else in your property, at no additional charge. Would be a helpful bullet point.
Okay, we got a question?
How about an introduction? How about an introduction?
Yeah, I'm Curtis Watson. I'm a new homeowner in Arlington Heights, right, two sides of my property border McDonald Creek, right by Hens Road, so.
Hints, okay, so you're,
Hinson Vista,
okay,
yeah, right north of Camelot Community Center in Arlington Heights,
yes,
just north of that.
So
exactly.
you're on the north branch?
Yes,
Okay, close to Hintz Road then?
yeah, right on Hens Road.
Okay.
Yeah, the creek's kind of channelized down there, and then and then it goes straight, and then it takes a big turn, and Hinson, yeah.
Which garbage service do you have in Arlington Heights? Root. You'd have to talk to Arlington Heights. We have Republic Services in Prospect Heights. And so a different hauler might have a different, or every city typically has a different contract with the community as what they're providing.
Arlington Heights requires stickers on their garbage bags, or their landscape stick bags. So if you bundle your trimmings, you have to have a sticker on that bundle. Yeah.
Well, you might have to befriend a Prospect Heights resident.
Well, we might have to get a cooperative, down the line, we would want to go upstream, because what's upstream comes And
What
there's,
comes past you comes by me.
yeah, right.
I'm the next stop past, because I'm basically along Schoenbeck Road,
And-
between Hintz and,
And we may
Park.
want to, because one of the biggest
Rick and I get all of it.
locations for trash and such is behind that Four Winds apartment complex, which is our Arlington Heights, I believe, and that's downstream from you, which means it's backing you up. So. I bought the kids a trash picker. They think it's fun. All right. Good to have you. Where were we at? You know, I don't have. Oh, yes, I thought he did. I thought she did. Did we approve the minutes?
Yeah,
Yes, we
you had
did.
your second here.
Okay, thank you.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I lost
okay.
my
So
agenda.
then,
Where am I? at? We
easement.
did the easements in the brochure, the city
So
website.
City website.
Yeah.
I have, there hasn't been a lot of changes to the website as of yet, but I can promise you hopefully that those will be made the next week or two. I have everything ready to go to Peter to get it uploaded to the website. I've looked at some of the other commissions and committees on the Prospect Heights website. I am trying to somewhat model it so they keep the consistent theme. So I have the kind of the website laid out similar to those, and it's just a matter of working with Peter to get the brochures uploaded and then the text added.
I was getting too wide.
Great.
And I even picked up a couple of additional ones today.
Oh, there's a few new ones, huh? In that, we've talked about the city council presentation, or talked around it a few times. Are we about ready to do something?
Well,
I,
Well, we have a brochure to approve. We have a plan for spring work days. It's too soon to set a date, I think. And I'm dependent on weather a little bit, right?
Right.
You want to do a walk, homeowner meet and greet, pass out handouts before we do a spring cleanup day?
I would think that.
Yeah.
yes, that's
Okay,
appropriate.
and along with that, so we'd like to ask for a little bit of money to print these. And what else?
Do we need to ask city council for that amount of money?
We shouldn't.
Isn't it kind of like
We're not
under
funded at
the
all.
amount? No, but it's under the slush fund.
Do we have?
Every school district has them, and I sure know every public service place has them too, because it's not that much money.
Right, I would think that $100 that if we work
Right.
with Mr. Wade, certainly that's within his spending authority. I believe his spending authority is $10,000. He would need to be able to find it in the budget somewhere, but I would imagine printing or publication for Public Works or stormwater or
Sure.
something that, but perhaps, we could start.
We
on
could do that even before the city council presentation and say we already have them.
Okay.
Give them a copy.
So I've made a few notes on, what I thought would be included. Where did I put those?
For the brochure.
On the minutes, no, on what might be included in this presentation. They're on the meeting minutes, I think.
Yes, mission statement.
Yeah.
Plans for door-to-door engagement, plans for spring cleanup days with cooperation of Public Works, requests for funds.
And brochure. What else would you want to include in that? Did anybody get a chance to look at those strategic plans I drafted last October? And what did you think? Is this a direction we want to go? Is it more than you want to do?
Forgotten about them. I did look at it, but I forgot about them.
Do you want to get into restoration and water quality testing, and there's a lot of, or are you mostly focused on key blockages and flooding issues?
You have it? Oh, okay. Jan, do you have it, the strategic plans?
I sure thought I did, but I can't seem to find it here.
Oh, well, okay. I can grab you another one.
Okay, what part of this do we feel that we've already done?
The
So we
first part we kind of did, and after to be completed, kind of did some of that. We've already working our way down.
Okay, so I'm just trying to,
So the last one, ask the Park District for permission. And then on to the next page. I guess what I'm asking, do you want to get into any restoration efforts or not?
well, I guess,
Do you want to run those kind of work days?
okay, I guess my question is, we as a commission, how are we gonna go about arranging these?
Well,
These are goals, which are fine, but how do we as a commission, okay, start clearing buckthorn?
Well, we can do it ourselves, or we can recruit the church group behind the things. Yes? Yeah.
Doing that, because we do that regularly on our workdays.
The last time we mentioned it, there wasn't much interest in that.
And also, if you have workdays, we always have our volunteers sign a disclaimer
Okay.
in the event of injury.
Waiver. My desire would be to start with the education side of it and the initial cleanup. I certainly agree that these are goals that we would like to work towards, but I do think that they require, I think that we could probably get more done through cooperation with the existing groups than trying to reinvent it per se. I know that ComEd awarded a grant to the Prospect Heights Park District for a open space grant, I believe,
yeah.
in 2016.
And in 2017.
In 17?
They've got it and it gone twice, once to the city, once to the park district.
Right, and now they're limited, so they cannot get it again, whereas I think that potentially we might be able to get them that grant the third year in a row. Because they're limited, they can't get it, and that's why it went from the city, then it was the park
Right.
district, and now who's next? If we did it as a commission or a committee, that might be one way around that limitation.
I think you needed matching funds for that, I think.
That's true.
So,
I have a question
yes.
about, with the length of the creek, how much of the property is within Park District land?
It's probably 3/4 of a mile.
Okay.
It goes from pretty much like just past Hart's house, all the way south of Palatine Road. So it's
And Woodland Creeks, or
well,
that,
then it goes through private homeowners, and then later, again, it's at Woodland Creek, it's through Park District again.
and is Woodland Creek part of, on the Park District side, is that part of River Trails?
Yes, that would be River Trails. So this would-
Interesting.
So Prospect Heights Park.
Or Wheeling? No, that is River Trails.
That's River Trails.
Yeah.
As you go north and west from there, there's Kiwanis Park, just south of Palatine Road,
Yes,
at the end of Elm Street. That's Park District. Then the creek goes underneath Palatine Road, and it goes through Somerset Park, which is Park District, and Country Gardens Park, which is Park District, all the way to Glenbrook Road Drive, and then it becomes homeowners. So it's a long stretch where you have, most of it, you have both sides of the creek as Park District. It's a spot, is a, like I said, visible, accessible, and full of invasive stuff, and my thought would be to do it slowly. I don't, take out the worst of the buckthorn.
But Park District's responsibility.
No, they think that it's a nice hedge. And it keeps the soccer balls out of the creek. So we would have to take that into consideration, but the section by the soccer field, you might have to leave. But I wouldn't think of doing it as huge, just kind of slowly, a little bit at a time, because you have to put something else in, or it'll all just come back, and, and if you just clear it all out, it's too, what's my word I want? I think it looks like it clear cut and everything. People get all upset about. So if you can, slowly, it grew up slowly, you take it out slowly, and I think you've got a better chance of having some decent stuff come back if you just
But
clear it all
those
out.
areas now that are not Park District, and you say that are property owned, that's where all the erosion is happening.
Well, we can't do anything about the private property, so there's plenty of
Well,
erosion on the Park
I
District
disagree.
property. So,
But that's okay.
It just seems if we start there, it's, like I said, it's public. We don't have to worry about the easement stuff and all the rest.
Well, I'm
And
concerned
if
about
homeowners
down
saw it,
east.
perhaps they would
Down south.
look into their own,
Well,
continue.
I think part of the plan of this commission is to get homeowners involved
Yeah,
in understanding what they need to do if they are
Right.
owners or their property is along the creek.
And that's where I would be headed from this discussion. If we do a presentation to the city council, I would like to have the cooperation of all of the aldermen to be able to seek out names of people in their areas that live on the creek.
We
That
have a
we
list
could
of
either
addresses.
approach. No, I mean soliciting the aldermen to become involved by recommending people to this commission who live along the creek. You have to understand, we have 3 people on this commission who are from Ward 2. And that's, of course, where it originated. But what I would like to see is us generate more enthusiasm from the city representatives who are our aldermen to involve people that they can think of, and they should be able to know people that are living along those creeks. There's been some issues that they might know who they are. And get some recommendations where we can talk with them, or, and get some PR stuff so that we can involve more people from the top to the bottom. And I think if we do that, we will get more support on cleanups. We'll get more support in doing some things, along the properties. And it's worked in the past, but we did have more involvement from our aldermen at that time. So, but I would, with the commission, I would like to see that happen. So we have more on this committee, and we have more cooperation from the entire city and not just Ward 2.
Do you know the alderman?
No. The only other alderman I know is Ward 3, who came to the house a couple of times. And that is, what's his name? Forget.
I don't know.
Oh, wait.
Wait,
I can find him.
Ward 3.
Ward 3.
Ludwig.
No, he's Ward 4.
Yes,
I think he's Ward 4.
Okay, Ward 3, it's not Ludwig.
Okay, well, somebody must be sitting there, because we got Ward 2 here.
We skipped over 3 here. We go from 4, 5, 2.
Okay. Is it,
Ward 2 is
Yeah,
Larry
he's right-
Rosenthal.
His is right across the
It's
street.
4 then, he must be 4.
he is 4.
All
right.
No, it's not, it's
Thank
Ward
you.
4, Ludwigson.
Thank you.
And he's the one that came. That's right, that's who it was.
That's the one who thinks the whole town's a floodplain.
What?
I said, that's the one who claimed all of Prospect Heights as a floodplain.
Oh,
And he was around when we had these floods.
No, well, that's because he knows
Okay.
my creek.
No, I think that's a good idea, that the alderman, like any politician who has an office and he has a geographical area that he represents, should be involved in basically assisting what we're trying to do as far as the maintaining some of the infrastructure of the city, which McDonald Creek is, because it 90 or probably 80% of the surface runoff in the city ends up in McDonald Creek. So that's part of your infrastructure.
Right.
right.
So I think if I may just recap a little bit, Kathy, I mean, I certainly am in support of tackling specific restoration projects, but I think that perhaps that would be like a year 3 goal. I think so we're starting year 2. I think for year 2, if we can get out the brochure, start the education, involve the city aldermen, and then ultimately recruit more volunteers, get more community awareness of the cleanup portion of it. And then the logical next step is, okay, we've cleaned up the creek, we don't have the blockages, we don't have the floating garbage and things like that. What else can we do? And then I think the next logical step is bank stabilization, restoration, removing the invasive species and putting back more native plants to try to restore it back to what it originally was. But so that's how I see the kind of the natural progression of the committee and of the group and where we're headed. And I do think that using perhaps some of the existing groups, if in the meantime, if it works out, may help us to make some progress towards some of that invasive species removal even this year. If we can use the Natural Resources Commission and some of their volunteers, perhaps we can do some specific projects in conjunction with them this year. And really it kind of gives us a feel for what those projects would look like.
Yeah, no, I agree. And along that same line, when you're talking about the Natural Resource Commission, okay, for homeowners to have access, if we want to plant grass, okay, we can,
We don't want to plant grass.
well, in other words, when you get rid of the invasive species and you want to plant grasses or sedges where invasives were removed, and you purchase that from the Natural Resource Committee. Now, I don't know what the procedure would be if, as a homeowner, that I own the creek both sides, and I'm doing lawn maintenance, and I want to stabilize my bank a little bit. Who do I see? How do I can I go buy the proper seed to put on the banks? Where do I go? How do I do it? Who do I call?
All right, that would be, yeah. You want us to provide the information for other people to do it? Okay. I think that's kind of a consensus here, isn't
No,
it?
I agree with that.
Okay. Jan, you wanted to talk about, where are we at?
Yes,
Woodland Trails.
I'd like to report in the meeting.
So, before we go, can we ready to set a date, pick a month for this presentation, or, and who
How
would
about
like to give
February?
it? Dan?
Well, John's going to give it.
John's gonna give it.
Yeah,
Okay. John and Dan?
We already decided
February,
that.
John.
I guess when you don't show up to the last meeting, but no, I did initially commit
Yeah, yes, you
to
did.
then
it, so I certainly am willing to do that, whenever the group thinks that we're ready.
So you
Whenever-
get-
We're ready.
You're
I would
ready.
suggest that whenever you're ready, get the website set up the way you want it,
Okay,
and I think through that process, you'll decide, okay, now it's time for me to address the city council, which will refer to our website, what we hope to accomplish with it,
yeah,
like getting people to online ask questions, and we funnel that through to help us make some decisions.
okay,
Don, you tell us what you need before.
okay.
When you decide, and what we need to provide for you.
Do we know when the meetings are?
It's the second Monday of the month, I think, is the workshop meeting
Okay,
that he said we should do. It's in some past minutes. I'll dig them out. Dan,
Yeah.
what's,
Oh,
Wanna
wonderful
tell us
meeting I
about-
had. And I think, before I begin, I would just like it was a very good meeting I had with Tim Pope, and I was glad that his name was recommended to me from River Trails Park District. He's the superintendent. And I got the whole scoop of what happened there, how it happened, and who was responsible.
okay.
And that's pretty much what's written down here. And that's why you're kind of hearing me hinting toward other agencies and what they can do. Well, they can. And it is wonderful that how this all happened. Apparently, there was a small stream stabilization meeting by MWRD about approximately 5 years ago, but I'm not certain. I do know at this point who our person was here. As of tonight, I know who that is. But anyway, the invitation for this meeting went out to Prospect Heights, maybe Arlington Heights too, I'm not certain, because I was only doing with River Trails, but the River Trails Park District in Mount Prospect, Prospect Heights, and other communities like were along McDonald Creek and other areas, okay? And so what happened after that point, Tim actually, who was still the superintendent, applied for a grant from MWRD to take care of that issue in their area. And before that all happened, Mount Prospect, who was in attendance, because I've walked the creek down there in Mount Prospect, and it's pretty devastating with erosion. And anyway, Mount Prospect decided they were going to ask MWRD. And so as it turned out, they asked for Higgins Creek, which is west of Elmhurst, which is part of the project, along with McDonald Creek, and also they included the actual park district as well in that whole thing. They did some bidding, and when it was all said and done, the cost of the bid was $1.9 million.
Oh,
That's what it cost.
was that for the whole
For
thing?
the
Higgins
whole
Creek and
thing.
everything?
And as it turned out, the community did not have to pay a cent. MWRD paid for the whole thing. And that included that park district acting, and I have the names of the companies and so on who did seedings, and when the actual North End Bridge that crosses right at the beginning of Prospect Heights boundary line, but it's still in the park district, when that bridge started to fall in because of the riprap, and I don't know if I spelled it correctly, but that bridge was falling in because that was part of the process that was down in the widening of the creek previously. And as it turned out, the bridge is starting to go in, so they called after the projects were already done. They called MWRD and they said, listen, we got to get this fixed. So what did they do? They paid for it. MWRD continued to pay for it. No expense to Mount Prospect or River Trails. Wow. And as it turned out, they put up then, and Rick has some following information that he got today, but they then put up the, what do you call it, Rick? The
Gambino baskets, yeah.
Gambino baskets, and to stabilize the creek bank and take out all that riprap. No additional charge, and this all was completed, we think, within 3 years. That's why my heart is in where it is, because Tim said that he would be more agreeable to come with some photographs and pictures and whatever and do a presentation here. The actual stabilization and the growth of what they did down there that we see was all part done by actually 2 companies. And he has the name of them. He also gave me names of who to contact with WMRD who would be worth coming out. He also said that I guess they do know about McDonald Creek and its problems. And when I understood, and I had to call him back for information, but when I understood that one of the invitations came from the city to go to that meeting, and there was no response.
Nobody from Prospect Heights
No.
went.
But I think that was in a transition period between engineers. And I think, as I've learned now tonight from Hart, that there was actually under a consultant basis for 2 years, and he's right now, or did, leave here. and he went up to Lake Forest. So I just am so encouraged with the cooperation and knowledge. Maybe it's the knowledge we need to get, but we would need to understand that anything that WNRD does has to be started from the city. The only reason all of this happened was because of Mount Prospect, and they have to move forward with the plans of meetings and a possible grant program or whatever. But the city of Prospect Heights, River Trails, they never had to pay a cent for the whole thing. So it obviously is on the map of small streams where they had this meeting.
Well, that's what Rick looked up, right?
Right,
The Small
and-
Streams Maintenance Program?
Right, and my contact, I have not gotten a hold of anybody to call me back, but my information was that they paid $655,000 for the 3 locations. And Jan figure might be a little bit more accurate, but I also talked to a gentleman that we do business with, and he confirmed that Mount Prospect did not for anything.
So what, go ahead.
I guess my question is did this include private property sections of the creek as well?
Yes,
Okay,
had to.
okay, so then that's not that different than what we're talking about doing,
Exactly.
moving north into
Absolutely.
Prospect Heights.
But
Yes.
I think the emphasis that she's talking about is that it's going to take action by the city and the city council to take this information and move
Right.
to put in requests for whatever.
So do
Right.
we need
Well,
to
I
check
have-
and see what grants are
No,
available?
Right, yeah.
No,
that's-
I wouldn't do that first. I would recommend that we get information from WMRD,
Right, not grants.
from Mount Prospect, what they did, and that we actually get what problems there are within the creek, because we're now not just talking about Prospect Heights, we're talking about Arlington Heights, we're talking about Wheeling. And so it is something that down the road, but we can't wait to start.
I
if
do
in
have the latest, it's the Lower Des Plaines watershed plan, and it does address McDonald Creek, and I do have that, it's about 5 pages, so I think that's what that's
Yeah, and this
WMRD's
committee,
plan.
it sounds like this committee was just dealing with Small Creek tributary,
Yes,
which is the McDonald Creek
Right.
to the Des Plaines, right?
so if we,
So if you
Pull the
would like
information
him to
together.
come, if you would like me to continue with talking to Mount Prospect, if you would, the superintendent, if you want Rick to go ahead and,
No, because I got, the gentleman that you talked to, or referred me
Yeah.
to, he just not called me back, and I've got a call to his boss, so maybe we try to get him to come
right,
out
and
here.
I have a
He's with
couple of
them.
other names.
He's with MWRD.
Right.
who did you try to,
Gentleman by the name of George B., but Brian Levy is in charge of the small water.
okay,
George B., that rings
George B. or V?
B, like
a
the
bumblebee.
buzz.
like a bumblebee.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other one that's also recommended is Justin Kirk. And those are the ones that Tim actually worked with. I'm sorry, not Tim, Tom. I call him Tim? Tom.
Tom Pope?
I had. Notes from,
But he would be willing to come and chat with us too, and he can tell you all about how they planted it and what they did with this straw putting underneath. And how they, and we know we've seen it. These Kathy, you have too, what a wonderful job. you
Brian
did.
Levy, that's
Right.
that's who Mark Roscoe has, that's his contact.
That's his, we find out more information.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, my thought on the issue is that if we can, part of our job is to provide support for village staff and the elected officials. My thought is that if we have the meeting with MWRD, or at least have the dialogue with MWRD, understand the grant process, if it's a non-matching grant that is truly a 100%
No,
funded
it's not.
project by
Well-
MWRD, if we can put together that grant application and then give it to the city and say, this is basically ready to go, we'd like to apply for this, there is no financial contribution, so it shouldn't really require, board action necessarily by there, it would be submitted by staff to MWRD. if they get the grant, it's a bonus for them, and the project can move forward. If we don't get the grant, then we try it again in the next go-around. But I don't see I don't see any downside to that.
I would like to have an alderman, though, available at the meeting when MWRD was here. I just feel more comfortable. So they are more gaining knowledge at the same time and can make a report. Maybe Larry, being, kind of our go-between, would be one.
Okay. Do you want to see if you would like to come to the next meeting and we
Right,
will
no, yeah. We'll
do some
see
research
something,
beforehand?
Right, try and get somebody here, either February or March, yeah,
Okay. Who's going to make that call?
I'll do that.
Okay, Rick.
Do you want Jim to come too?
Yeah.
Tom
Tom.
as well, since he was an initiator?
Yeah, that would be, well, would they duplicate each other or?
Probably
or
not, because MWRD is going to have more of the stuff that they had to agree upon for that whole area, is my guess.
And then
Should we
Mr.
have one?
Not just
One and then
Park
another?
District.
Or
I wouldn't think we'd want them both at the same time.
who do we need information from first?
I don't know, you decide from what my report was. Go ahead, Rick, you decide.
Well,
I don't know.
I think Mr. Pope offers a specific case study on their positive experience working with MWRD. And then MWRD is going to provide the specific grant programs or the specific funding that they have available for what we're looking for, basically.
Yeah, what it would take to get it.
Right, how do we-
I don't know that they're necessarily in conflict with each other, and I don't see them as
No,
bad.
I don't think so at all. They're very cooperative.
Right.
He
so I
said it
don't
was
even see
wonderful.
it as a bad thing having them both at one meeting and let MWRD
See
make
who
the
can
pitch.
come.
Right.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Okay. So when is our next meeting? It's gonna kill me.
Probably close to February 23rd. February 27th, fourth Tuesday, right?
Mm-hmm.
February 27th.
Oh, it's still.
Okay. Okay, 6 o'clock, February 27th. Rick's gonna see if Brian Levy probably
Right, that's on the drive for, definitely.
can come. And I'll do a little research on the paperwork behind it, so we can send you whatever I find ahead of time, so we can read through some stuff, and if there is anything, if I can find anything.
Would be curious to know with the adjacent communities that are along the creek for us, even the majority of it is on our side. It would be interesting, we got Arlington Heights up there. How MWRD would do a project,
Well, yeah,
how they would do a project that would be including
Whether they,
Arlington Heights, Wheeling, Prospect Heights.
Yeah,
and that's basically what
Right.
this is saying.
yeah, if we could, I don't know, you're new in Arlington Heights, you don't know, they don't have much, okay. 2 acres, which house has that much land over there? A lot of teasel. Didn't check that.
Well, I think that's one of the questions that MWRD can help us answer. Do they look more favorably upon a multi-jurisdictional project, or do they want a small enough project that they can fund? Obviously, our primary concern is Prospect Heights and the creek that flows through Prospect Heights. But certainly if they have the funding and the revenue to be able to do a larger project, as somewhat similar to what they did for the River Trails Park District, perhaps they will encourage us to work or apply with the Village of Wheeling, Village of Arlington Heights, and it may be a larger project, but I think that's something we can get hear directly from MWRD and what their preference is for their grant process.
Yeah, that, excuse me, but that 1.9 million that he quoted me included all the landscaping.
Oh,
It included, the bank stabilization along with all the landscaping, and there were actually 2 different companies that did that.
that would be lovely.
And then typically they
No
come
harm
with
in
a
asking.
two-year
Right.
warranty.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna come and say, hey, by the way, can we clean up the
Well,
creek?
come here, honey, let me toss you.
Yeah, we wanna clean up, we wanna come clean up.
Get over here. Well, we like.
Okay, I'm gonna get you copies of their inspection checklist.
Representation, and they were invited, right?
John's going to get his website stuff going and let us know what else he wants. Maybe we'll hold off on a presentation to city council till after we talk to the MWRD guy.
That makes sense.
That would be my preference.
So aim for March, and then by then we'll see what the weather's like, how it's shaping up, and maybe we can schedule our cleanup day.
Do we have any city functions, larger functions that the brochure can be distributed at before then,
Before then,
or no? Not really. It's
not
winter
that I'm
in Illinois.
aware of. Yeah, the first
Okay.
in June, their Summerfest is the first.
Garden club.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay. So we have time for that.
yeah. The Earth
Garden-
Day in
Garden
April
club
is always
sale is May 17th, I think it is.
I'm sorry, what was the May?
The May 7th, I think it's a Saturday, the 17th is the garden club sale. It's very, very popular.
Yeah,
And that's run by the,
Prospect Heights Garden Club.
I see.
that would be one. The other, they always have a race, 5K race, last weekend in April, at Country Gardens. So that would be, we'd have to probably not have a cleanup day there that day.
Could hand out brochures.
We
as
could, as they
they
go
come
by.
walking by.
Yes, they probably do have a little bit.
And a
We could
glass of
hand out
creek water.
brochures there.
That's
'cause-
right, we give them a little water.
Okay, yeah.
From the
that's,
creek, right?
What do they call the backbones?
We're gonna have fresh bottled water from the creek, correct?
Yes.
But you might, if you attract local people to that, so you could probably set up a stand with some.
And by the way, a good article that was written, if none of you have seen it, on this commission in the Journal. It was a long article. Kathy had a lot of pressure, and so did I, when she couldn't get you, I think, or, I don't know if he called anybody else.
Who
in the
did
committee.
she contact?
Well, she got me on the email twice, and I wasn't out of the country the first time, and then the next time like you. And I think she called you after
I sent
me.
her all the printed material
She
that
said
we had
that's right.
and various then things.
But it
and
was written very
decided
well.
she needs to write it. I'm not
January the
quite sure.
12th. Commission aims to educate the community about the creek. And it goes all the way down through 2 columns and,
Yeah, I don't get the journal. How do we get it?
Oh,
nice.
really?
You what?
That's how the gentleman.
oh, is that right?
Thank you, see? I didn't think anybody read that.
No, see, and look, it's got a picture and everything in there.
I sent her a few pictures.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's a really nice article.
Oh, good.
And she's a good person, have you noticed, a good person to talk to. You were under the pressure, and so was I. And I thought, I was hoping you would do it, because
Where-
I'm going, I'm not,
where
I
is the
didn't
journal
talk to her, I just
distributed?
emailed her.
Where is the
I
journal
wasn't-
distributed, or how
out
do you?
of Mount Prospect.
Prospect and.
And they
Prospect
have,
Heights.
it includes Prospect Heights, Mount Prospect, Des Plaines. I think that's it. Oh, no,
Yeah.
it also goes over to Niles, so they have stuff in Niles and Rosemont.
Yeah, because I
Where do
don't
you-
get it.
Where do you pick
You
up
have to
the
pay for it.
Oh.
You can pick, no, you can get it at Walgreens.
Google News? Okay.
You can do it in Google, right? No, they have them up at Walgreens here in the corner.
Curtis, just give me your email address before you go, and we'll include you on. And then we're gonna get you to start an Arlington Heights subcommittee. Okay.
Well, we are all in this together, and I think that's the one thing that this commission has
We really
talked
should have a
about.
regional one, because creeks,
The water meanders through Arlington Heights, Prospect Heights, Wheeling, Mount Prospect. and-
Goes through and
but it does end up at the Gulf of Mexico. Sure.
Yes.
Theoretically, if they put their little boat in that creek, it'll end up in the Gulf of Mexico.
Probably get stuck at the Lockport Dam, but,
may not even make it through my little one.
That's
Theoretically.
interesting. What about those kids that put their rafts in and go down the creek? If
What,
it's
have you
not a
seen kids
recreational
rafting?
waterway. Oh, yes.
Really?
Every year, there's at least some.
how do they
And
drag them back upstream?
they'll fish there too, off the bridge.
There are big fish and little fish in the creek. There are turtles. There are
Herons, lots of herons.
yeah, that great blue
Lots of
stayed the winter.
Yes, he
Is-
did.
Yeah, that,
I scared him yesterday.
Well, it depends on where you
Have
at.
little
Down,
hedgehogs.
downstream is a little bit deeper.
that great blue's been in your neighbor, right behind your house. His tracks are out there in the snow.
They go
I
down
see
there.
your
and
coyotes
steer down with the hedgehogs
in my
over
section.
So,
Yeah.
and we did do some water quality testing, and it's impaired, almost every stream in
My husband said they were
the
hedgehogs.
country is impaired in some way, but it's not
Fuzzy little-
horrible.
they're Much
It's,
nicer than the opossums.
Kind of average impaired. It's not chemically terrible, so, I let the kids walk in it.
Don't you
There's some
sterilize their
big
boots after they've been in there?
catfish or whatever you
You
call
know,
it.
sometimes you think that with, as cold as it was, everything frozen would be an opportune time to just walk down the creek and
Curiously.
cut everything that needs cutting and
Right.
just drag
But
it.
that's why winter, yeah, is the best time to
That's
do
when we
this
do all
stuff.
of ours. in my community.
Curiously, the creek was frozen south of like your house, and north of it, it was not. And so, past the outfall from Lake Arlington, where you would think it would not be, that's where it was frozen, but before the outfall, it wasn't. So what's warm coming into the creek
Whoa.
before that?
Well, all of Prospect Heights is served by public sewers at this point, right? As far
Yeah,
as we're
yeah.
understanding. So there is no, we don't, the water quality should naturally be getting better just from, the no more overflowing septics and the NPDS thing that you showed earlier obviously means that the city has a responsibility for illicit discharge monitoring of the creek. And so, and it truly is just storm runoff, and certainly there's a lot of fertilizers and a lot of things that people do on their property, but it's not,
Yeah, I
not
guess
quite as bad as the
my
septic.
question would be, where were the samples taken? Because if I'm looking at downstream of the Lake Arlington outfall, when you look at the water flows, all of that, the commercial section, Arlington Heights Road, Palatine Road, that whole area, all of that surface water ends up in Lake Arlington. Where you're at, the North Branch picks it up from, I think, starts at like Lake Cook Road, and then gathers all of that, comes by, and bypasses Lake Arlington, except when it gets too high, and then it flows in. Yes,
Well,
that branch bypasses Lake
yeah, that
Arlington,
branched, one
and then
branch.
passes down through Country Gardens where I'm at, and then past the outfall.
There's two branches that come together and meet, like at Lake Arlington.
Right.
Coming off Lake Arlington.
That north branch is actually a bypass. Right, unless it gets to a certain level, and then it will dump in. So when you're looking at that area, look to see where that,
Well, wait, it does, though, because it comes through like Cherry Creek across there, and then behind the apartments there, and then it does go to Lake Arlington and disappears into Lake Arlington and then back out again under the road. And heads down where
Right.
all the riprap is along, and what's the name of it? It's Arlington Heights there now. It crosses Windsor. It goes under Windsor, okay, piped under Windsor. And then it goes through that, like, channel where it's all the rock along the wall, rock walls headed toward Camelot Park.
Yeah, I run along there.
Yeah, right. But it does disappear from there into, like, and then the other branch is coming just south of there, and that disappears into Lake Arlington. And then one comes out on the north side of Lake Arlington. So we need to see a, like, storm sewer map to see where exactly it comes from. And then it starts just at Old Arlington Heights Road and Arlington Heights Road, where it used to be a Jewish community center there. Kind of disappears under Arlington Heights Road, and I don't know where the actual origin is, because it disappears into the industrial park and it starts somewhere around there. It comes into it, but underground, under the road. They kind of,
It never seems dry. There's always something in the creek.
it's never dry. It should be in the summer, it should be dry.
Never dried.
Yeah, there is, but historically it would have been dried up in the summer. But, yeah, there's always something in it. Well, anything else?
No, make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thanks for coming.